Hello everyone, welcome to Aardvark. This is a section where we talk to people in the video games industry about the career, the studios and things that they're currently up to. With me today is Nihal Tharoor, founder and CEO of Electric Noir, who do mobile game development, particularly in narrative and interactive games. Hello Nihal.
Hiya.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining me today. So tell us a bit more about your role at Electric Noir and what kind of typical day for you involves.
Typical day. There's never the same day, it seems, when you're kind of running a startup. But the team divides into content and platform. So in terms of content, I'm managing our creatives who are developing new seasons of our interactive crime drama Dead Man's Phone. So, working with them on the narrative, on the story, the scripts, filming, production, and kind of the kind of gameplay that they're thinking about. Then on the other side, we have the kind of the tech and the platform team, which is really important, and we're kind of working out, on these kind of agile sprints, how we can meet our goals in terms of developing out all the features that we want for the platform and for the new series. And then, of course, we have more kind of business stuff that me and my co-founder Ben have to work on, like liaising with our investors, our VCs who want to know how the business is doing, and kind of putting ourselves out there in the world and doing chats like this.
A lot of responsibility there, and obviously that's grown since, as you are a startup, I'm sure you've had to take on a fair bit over time.
Many hats, yeah.
Yeah, I bet. So obviously, if people do want to listen to our podcast where we talk a bit more in detail about your studio, they'll find you've only recently got into the games industry relatively, and you have a bit more of a marketing background. Were you interested in the games industry before, like personally, or have you always wanted to go into game development at all?
No, I grew up playing games a lot. Really obsessed with it. In the noughties, and really loved games. And then I kind of drifted from it, I guess, in the early part of the last decade, and really kind of never thought we'd be going into games. And really, it was just the idea for Dead Man's Phone, for this interactive crime drama where you solve the murder by going through the phone of murder victims. I think that idea led us into the games industry, and that's been our vision to realize that and realize this interactive story platform. But it was purely to realize that vision rather than just to work in the games industry. So it's been an interesting journey, kind of, I guess, full circle from when I was a kid coming back into games.
Yeah. So going for you as a person, was a transition between, I suppose, both are very creative roles, but going from marketing to a big leadership role in video games, was that a difficult transition at all, or was it more seamless than you would have thought?
Well, it was actually quite useful, this kind of creative advertising course we did in Brixton called School of Communication Arts, where I met my co-founder, who's my creative partner. It's a really intense year where you just develop a portfolio of creative ideas to kind of to work with brands, and it's really, like, I think a lot of the kind of creative ideation and creative techniques, and kind of assessing creative ideas, all of these skills have been really, I think, transferable to working in the games industry, and I think that's actually put us in a lot of kind of good stead. I think the only difference is when you're working as a creative in advertising, you have to generate hundreds and hundreds of ideas, and you have to kill most of them, and it's a kind of quick, very short life cycle of ideas. But what's been lovely with founding our studio is that actually we've just had our baby with this one idea and just been able to nurture it and grow. So in that sense, it's a lot more rewarding, because we kind of just got this one idea we've always been passionate about, and been able to kind of develop it out. But yeah, I think we did get a lot of good experience coming from advertising.
Yeah, I think the best thing about that, what you're saying, is while you're creating on both, I think you definitely have a more of a personal and long-term investment in a project, more so in a video game platform than you would on marketing projects, perhaps.
Yeah.
Would you say that you found, because I was talking to Matt Knott of Necronox the other week, and he's had quite a varied background in terms of production roles in and outside of the video games industry, and he said there was a lot of benefit to working externally from the video games industry in skills that you might not necessarily develop if you're exclusively in that kind of space. Would you agree with that? Would you say that you've got an extra insight from having that other experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think certainly for what we're trying to do, which is create a product which is really at the intersection of film, TV, and games. I think being able to come from outside of the industry, and have a quite a wide variety of roles that we worked in, and having a quite kind of, I think also really understanding for as an outsider how games is perceived for kind of people who don't normally play it. I think has been quite an asset in terms of developing our product, that we want to be accessible beyond the games industry. We really want to create an interactive story platform accessible to non-gamers as well as gamers. So I think it's actually been really crucial for us to be outsiders, and to then come into the industry and be able to kind of articulate our vision uh, for what we're making.
Yeah, yeah. I think especially on the kind of platform that you are making and sort of your target audiences. On the flip side of that, however, would you say there's anything that you've had to learn and develop coming into games?
Yeah, I mean, loads. I mean, there's so much about the industry. We just had to learn it all these roles. I think, we really didn't know any what a QA engineer is, or how a tech lead is different from a senior to a CTO. And I mean, we're constantly learning. Thankfully, we've managed to attract some fantastic kind of veterans, and really great people who just know games inside and out. So we've been able to learn in all these kind of, all these roles, and the process of game development, and how you ship a mobile game. And it's been a long, working in agile development. I mean, yeah, it's an endless amount of stuff that we've had to learn. But thankfully, we've been surrounded, I think, by the right people with the right experience to kind of impart that knowledge.
Obviously, you have the hindsight now of a few years on your back. But is there anything that you wish you would have known when you first started that you know now, or any advice that you would have given to yourself if you could go back?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, in a way, I think I was saying earlier, I mean, I think it's kind of good that we were really naive going into this, because I think we probably would have been a bit scared off if we actually knew the undertaking when we founded the studio. If somebody said, this is like a life commitment. Are you ready for this? I think we thought it was
Yeah,
going to, we'll be able to knock up the game in 3 to 6 months and then go back to advertising. So I think in a way, being a bit naive and not really knowing what we were getting into was an advantage. It kind of allowed us to have the courage to do it. And then, as you go, you just, the horizon moves further, and you realize you're in this for longer, and you learn from it. But I think it was useful in that sense. I wouldn't want to go back and tell my former self all the gritty details of what I was about to go into. I think it
yeah,
was
yeah.
it
I
was
bet.
ignorance was bliss, I think, in that sense.
Yeah. So for someone that is thinking about wanting to, that does have an idea, who's wanting to start their own video games company and stuff, what advice perhaps would you give to them as someone that maybe knows what they're getting into, but
Yeah.
just doesn't know where to begin? What kind of tips would you give?
Depends whether this person has kind of programming skills, because that's like a fundamental. Me and Ben didn't. So first and foremost, we had to find someone who did, and who could take ownership of the coding, the programming of like, I guess, a prototype is what we call like an MVP, minimal viable product. So I think that's the first thing you want to do. If you're trying to build the company, you're gonna need to get some investment, probably from kind of your family and friends network, or whoever you can find to kind of take a punt on you, because we thought we could get professional investment, with just a great idea, but actually until you have some solid metrics, even with a great idea, it's very difficult to get that unless you've kind of founded a company before. Second time founders find it a lot easier to raise investment because there's so much you have to learn. So they're kind of trusted by the investors. But if it's your first company or your first product, yeah, I mean, I just encourage to kind of get whatever cash you can get together and build an MVP and get it out there as soon as possible and start collecting data on it and see what's wrong with it, what you can improve, iterate it, and get to a point where you've got some exciting metrics, and then you can start kind of reaching out to probably angel investors who invest in kind of studios, mobile games, whatever game studio it is, and start building it from there. But I think that's certainly what we found with it.
Yeah, very different to just cobbling something together and just put it out there. It seems more methodical and logical and data driven. As a way going forward. Yeah. But yeah, for those again, I would heavily recommend listening to our full podcast where we talk about the foundation of Electric Noir. But in that, you were talking about how, in terms of your hiring process, particularly for your project, bringing in people external from the video games industry, in your case, film, was critical for your project. We do get a lot of people here at Aardvark Swift that are wanting to transition either from business management to film animation to film production and stuff. Obviously, studios like yourselves do take those on board, but others that seem to be less inclined. What would you advise for someone who would want to transition in terms of, obviously you've experienced it both yourself and you've hired people transferring over. What's your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the role. I think when it came to hiring kind of writers, we just really knew the kind of product that we were building. Again, we want to, like I said, attract non-gamers, and we're trying to create something at the intersection of film, TV, and games. So for us, it was a bit of a no-brainer that when we're building out more content, we really want the people who are writing the great TV shows and the great films to be part of this product, so part of this business. And that's where we knew the talent that we wanted would be. In terms of other roles, I think it's just about what you bring to the table that someone in the games industry won't. And it's about, I guess, framing those skills in a way that's going to be really attractive to a game studio, and be like, I've learned things that you wouldn't have learned in the games industry, but that are actually going to be valuable and are going to be an asset for what you're building. So I think it's going to be probably quite an individual, tailored approach for wherever you're trying to work. But I think if you can convince them that you've got a skill set that others won't because of being external to the games industry, then I think you'll probably have a better chance of getting hired.
Yeah. If you didn't go into the games industry, do you think you'd still be in marketing, or do you think you would have branched
probably.
into other things?
Just twiddling away. I mean, funnily enough, a lot of our our advertising school have kind of moved into different industries, which is quite interesting. And I think it did really set us up to branch out into different spaces. But we'll probably would be continuing out on marketing.
Well, thank you, Nihal, for talking to me. It's been an absolute pleasure today. Like I said, I would recommend listening to the full podcast. If you do want to learn more about Electric Noir, please do listen to that. I've been your host, Michael Rodber. Thank you very much for listening.